One of the growth areas for me is realizing that people have their own different ways of connecting with God, their own practices that are most meaningful to them based on their personality, tradition, background, whatever it might be. So I've seen this with my own 3 kids who are quite different individuals. But one of the ways that I like to help them think about spiritual practices is to ask them, when do you feel closest to God? Understanding that we're wired differently and that there's a myriad of spiritual practices has brought real freedom to me. Instead of judging people whose spiritual practices are different than mine, I've come to appreciate and applaud how they connect with God. Now, having said that, my spiritual practices that I prefer are actually kind of traditional. So for me, it's prayer and Bible study. Since I was 16, I've loved prayer, Bible study, journaling. As a junior in high school, I made a commitment to spend 7 minutes a day with God. I remember the youth pastor who invited me to make that commitment, and that's been a part of my spiritual formation since I turned 16. I love spending time, usually in the mornings, I did it this morning, reading Matthew this morning, journaling some, reflecting on what that means for our family. I have a prayer journal where I have different pages where I pray for our kids, and I pray for our kids spiritually, socially, emotionally, physically, and mentally. And then I pray for our ministry here at the Fuller Youth Institute. So for me, my spiritual practices are kind of traditional evangelical, quiet time spiritual practices. And I've sometimes felt like I have to apologize for that almost, because we've tended to have kind of maybe a judgmental view toward those practices. But instead, understanding that all of us are wired differently has helped me find freedom in my own spiritual practices and bless and empower others to figure out how they best connect with God. When do they feel closest to God?